I think I can claim a Manchester legend, University of Manchester, Ed. Am I right? Yeah. So anyway, give a massive welcome, Ed O'Brien, John Robb. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks to our support act. Yeah.
I've always wanted to be a Manchester legend.
You finally done it.
Finally.
Yeah. So I thought that'd be a good point for us to start, actually, because I think there's probably quite a lot of people don't know you have a Manchester connection. I mean, the Ritz, it's a wonderful venue. I've been here about 1 million times, and you actually spent quite a lot of your latter teenage years in here.
Yeah, I was a student here from 87 to 1990 at the university, and I purposefully wanted to come to Manchester. I was a massive music fan, and anything that seemed to come out of Manchester from about 78 onwards sort of was on my radar, and I loved. And of course, I became a, Joy Division, New Order, everything on Factory. But then, the Smiths came along in '83, and I was, that's literally the reason I came here. But I was also in the band that I'd formed at school, which is Radiohead. And coming from a city like Oxford, I knew that I wanted to find out about the music scene. I knew that there was all the front stuff about the music and all of that, but there's a whole kind of, as Andy was talking about, an ecosystem. And in Oxford in the mid-'80s, there was no ecosystem.
There was a small one, though, wasn't there?
Well, it came
what's that
later.
street called all the venues are? There was a magazine, there was a little infrastructure.
But that came later.
Okay,
so when I left in '86, there was one venue called the Jericho Tavern. And then I came here, and, the International 2, the Ritz, the Hacienda, Band on the Wall, the University. And it was again being in a city. And I remember the first weekend I walked to Salford Uni from Fallowfield to see the Wooden Tops play. And it was total immersion. And I was under the pretense of doing a degree here, but really what I was doing, I started to book bands at the university, at the Hall of Residence, Owens Park. I got involved with, I sort of did roadieing at the university. I fronted a dodgy club at Legends for 2 nights for Rob Ballantyne, who was the events manager, who went to work at SJM. It was all very under the, nobody came. And then I sort of just got in there and rolled my sleeves up and tried to figure out, how does a band go from being a band like we were, a school band, to a band that gets signed? And Manchester was kind of like my sandpit. And it was incredible. I mean, I came in '87, and I remember Mars, Pump Up the Volume was #1, Public Enemy, Rebel Without a Pause. And I remember going to Hacienda the first night, and I can't remember the DJ, but hearing The Fall, followed by Public Enemy, it was just like, I'm in heaven.
The whole eclectic thing.
Yeah, the
best record collections, as Tony used to say, which was kind of true, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And because I come from Oxford, and Oxford it's about the university, and it was about Cowley. And there was no black culture in Oxford. That's another thing. So there's a lot of kids who came from London to university here, and they brought, they were all into rare groove and soul and early hip hop. Where I came from, there was no black culture. Of course, Manchester, you got Hume and Moss Side, and so it was kind of, and there was reggae, and it was just okay. It was just, I love this city. I really, it was just the best 3 years. Became a huge Mondays fan, and of course the Roses, and that whole thing exploded. And it was, and like Andy Burnham said, it was the center of the musical universe.
And as somebody who came from a city in the south, did you feel welcome here? Because I think that's one of the, because I'm not from Manchester, I'm from Blackpool.
Yeah.
And it was always a very welcoming city. And I think that, and as Tony always used to say when I used to meet in the streets and have fantastic arguments with him about everything, but he used to call it a city of immigrants. And I think that's really important, especially in the current political climate, that Manchester is a brilliant city for immigrants. Anybody can come here and be part of it. So obviously being white's a little easier, but come from the south, did you feel welcome here?
Yeah, it was interesting because Oxford is very, I mean, the university is pretty eclectic, so you had academics from all over, but really it is essentially white and very kind of English. And I always grew up being very aware of, I remember, I mean, anybody with an Irish surname, I was different. And, you know, there was always, in the 70s and 80s, the kind of an anti-Irish thing. Coming to Manchester, it was something like there's this Irish community. And I remember the first day going to Affleck's Palace. I thought, I'm not going into the university. I want to go to this place called Affleck's Palace. Then going into a chippy, getting chips and gravy, and the woman calling me love. And I'm just like...
The full Northern experience.
Yeah, I was just... It was really welcoming. And yeah, it was great. And what I didn't appreciate was, at the time, I guess, is I was always trying to not be a student. Because coming from Oxford, the students really... There was a lot of kind of anti-student sentiment from the town people, and I thought that same thing would exist. Well, it didn't really exist, and what I didn't realize, actually, if you've got 50,000 students in a city, that energy and that creativity and that kind of disposable income as well, they want to go out, and that plays a part, right, to a vibrant scene.
Completely. I mean, I love it in September when the students come back and you just get that rush of youthful energy.
Yeah.
And I live in Hume, and it's very noisy with the students. I totally love it. It's brilliant. You know, that's what a city should be like: vibrant, youthful, forward-thinking, which is very Manchester, which I guess is what that kind of energy is what you took from the city at the time as well.
Totally. And I think the university, I was, I kind of got my shit together the last year, because I did no work for 2 years. And I was doing basically an economics degree, but it was mainly politics. And I suddenly realized there was this government department there, and they were known as the Manchester Mafia. And I think they were there were people like Peter Mayer, who became he went on to be a professor and was a leading light in kind of European, the move in Europe in and they were very, very forward thinking there. It was a very different kind of, you know, academic experience, I think, than, you know, there were a lot of good universities, obviously, but yeah, I love this city, and it has that kind of, you know, the university made a big thing of it. It was where the computer was invented, right?
Okay, computer.
There you go, full circle.
Still got a blue plaque. Manchester doesn't celebrate its past enough, actually. But, you know, the world's first computer, most people don't actually know where that was, but I know where it was.
You know, exactly.
So what did you take back from Manchester to the other guys in Radiohead, musically, culturally, spiritually? What did you take stuff back in there? Was it part of the...
Maracas.
Well, that's a pretty big part. I mean, Bez was an amazing part of the Mondays.
I remember, I'll digress slightly, but I remember, because like everyone here in Manchester, like that whole thing in '89. Like, do you remember, like, people just playing bongos in the street? And I took a pair of, I bought my maracas, and you just go to a gig and play maracas, and I took it down to Oxford, and everyone was like, who's the fucking loony in the corner? What did I take? I understood what we had to do. I understood the kind of management that we needed. I understood all the sort of stuff behind the scenes, which is important. What we had to get our... You see, it was interesting, because when we were signed in the end of '91, we got a lot of interest. So I finished here in 1990, and then Tom had another year at university in Exeter, and then that summer of '91, we were like, right, what we needed to do, what we realized is we needed to build up a local support. Like, I always remember the Mondays and the Roses and the Spiral Carpets. They were playing big venues, and then they'd be playing clubs throughout. They had such a great loyal following, and I knew we had to do that. There was no point us trying to get gigs in London. What we had to do was build up, and thankfully by that stage, there was a local scene happening, and Ride, the band, had sort of, they'd helped foster this scene, and so there was an audience, and there was an infrastructure. There was a venue, there were rehearsal rooms, which there hadn't been before, and there was a local music magazine called Night Shift, Curfew, and they were really important. That was the ecosystem. So what we needed to do was we aspired to be on the front cover of Curfew, the free music magazine, which came out every month, and to build up a following so we'd have 150, so that by the time there was some record company interest, should we get it, rather than us go to London and do a kind of a showcase, they'd have to come to Oxford. And it happened very quickly. It happened within 3 months, and that's exactly what happened.
What's always interesting me about you, Ed, is you've had the success in Radiohead. You know, last time I saw you play Manchester was at the cricket ground, and it wasn't playing cricket. There was 50,000 people there, and it was like watching the weirdest little underground band you could possibly imagine, and probably should really be getting one play a week on Six Music, but somehow in the mainstream.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant trick that you pulled off there, to take that music and actually make it into some kind of weird pop music. And I remember we talked about this before, there's two little things come off this, but we talked about your influences. I mean, Johnny Marr's a big influence, but also John McGough as well.
Yeah.
You know, he came to Manchester as a student, and became one of the greatest guitar players of that post-punk period. And that kind of managed a thing where you just take your own route, even if it doesn't work, you're just going to go there anyway.
Yeah.
Was that something you took from the city?
Yeah, and I think musically, I think one of the things about Manchester is, you know, there's always been an attitude, but melody. What I've always thought about Manchester music, there's a melody. It's very musical. Mm-hmm. I've always thought that, and you know, all those bands up to, you know, the Doves and stuff like. There's always and I think it's, I don't know what it is. I've talked to Johnny a bit about it, and it's obviously this is the whole white aspect of the music here. Maybe it's an Irish thing as well. Maybe it's because of the big Irish community here. They bring melody and that thing is important. But definitely it gave, and then because of course we sort of came up at the same time as Britpop. We weren't part of Britpop, but Britpop was all about tunes. It was an attitude, but it was all about tunes. So I think it was, we always had that, but what we were always trying to do was, rather than make a song straight ahead, and it was all probably a bit like Magazine. I mean, Magazine were a huge influence, another obviously, you know, Manchester band, and the Smiths, but sort of again subverted. I mean, the Smiths were the most melodic band. Johnny's guitar playing the songs and the music he wrote was incredible, but it was, you know, juxtaposed with these acerbic and witty lyrics. Morrissey, and so yeah, I think coming to Manchester, I always kind of, in a funny kind of way, I didn't really want to come back to Manchester until I was, you know, I left in 1990. I wanted to come back with my band, and I wanted us to be, it was really important to me that we mattered in a place like Manchester, because there are a lot of, you know, because of the music that I love from here, but also the inherent musicality of the city. I always remember like talking to booking agents when I worked here. They loved booking when I was here. You know, I might book the odd band come up from London. They loved coming here, and they'd often start a tour in Manchester because the audience were, you know, they're up for it like a Glasgow audience are typically, you know.
And is that experience of when you were a student and doing all those different facets of music, you know, you said you're putting nights on, you were roadieing, trying to play music, going back to Oxford to rehearse on a Friday, and all those kind of things. To this day, you seem to be very involved, you know, because a lot of people in your position now, in a band that sold an awful lot of records, you don't have to care anymore, do you? But I know what you do because we're both on the board of the FAC, and I know how much you care about young bands and all the different little problems that affect the music industry, which shouldn't really affect someone in your position, but you're passionate about these, aren't you? Is that from that period and that kind of running through?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if it's from that period. I think it's, you know, I love seeing young bands and